Good evening, friends, and welcome to yet another awesome session of Mindful Living. I truly appreciate your taking out time and joining us this weekend. And I promise you that I shall do my best to make this investment of time worth your while. Is it okay if I ask you a question before we proceed? Please type okay in the chat if it is fine for me to ask you a question. Thank you, Zarir. Thank you. So what comes to your mind when you see this picture? Please type in the chat or unmute yourself and speak. What comes to your mind when you see this picture? Ups and downs. Thank you, Vikash. Which path to take? Thank you, Zarir. A choice, a confusion. Confusion. Okay, Bhavna. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? This is also represents making a choice to elevate our life to the next level. And if you want to elevate your life to the next level, please type E in the chat box. If you are here to elevate your life to the next level, thank you, Fahad. Please type E. Thank you, Fahad. Thank you, Zarid. Thank you, Vikas. So friends, those of you who want to elevate your life to the next level, you are at the right place at the right time, because our session today is going to talk about how to face our fears and achieve or fulfill our dreams. And in the session today, I'll be leaning on the research that I've been doing on this for the last 5 years, and also sharing some of the experiences from my life, how this theme has played out in my life. I would urge you to keep your cameras on so that we can have a good interaction. And I would request you to be participative by using the reactions button. So please show thumbs up, love, or clap if there is something I share which resonates with you. I'll be happy to hear your comments and questions as we go along. So don't wait for the session to get over. We will be happy to take your questions and comments as we go along. And before I begin, I'll just like to share this 70-20-10 rule of learning, which states that 10% of the learning happens by listening to the speaker or trainer, 20% happens through discussions, and 70% happens through the application of what you've learned. So be actively involved in the session today. This is an important one because fear is something that paralyzes us and keeps us trapped. And that is what we will understand today. What is fear? What is the root cause of fear? And 7 strategies to deal with fear, and which will help you reach your dreams. So let us begin by understanding fear. Fear is a basic and intense emotion which is aroused by detection of imminent threat. And what it does is it triggers a physiological change in our body. And that involves increasing our heartbeat, directing the flow of blood to our hands and legs, tensing the muscles, and general mobilization of the body. Now let us understand this better by understanding the history of human evolution. Human beings have been on the planet Earth for over 6 million years. And it is only in about last 10,000 years or so that we have started settling down in villages or cities. So for 59,90,000 years, we were living in jungles. And there was a real danger of predators. And that is how this fear helped us survive through the years. So through the millions of years or lakhs of years. So when we would see a tiger or a lion or a snake, we either decide to fight it or flight from there, which is to run away. And in both the cases, we need blood to be pumped to our hands in case you want to fight, or to our legs if you want to run away. So that is how fear operated. That is the biological basis of fear, and it has helped us survive. It is very important for us to understand this. Uh, as we go along, I'll keep referring to this discussion again and again. So when we think of ourselves, we think of ourselves as 50 years old, 20, 30 years old, 60, 70, whatever our age is. But what we need to realize is that our brain has got a much more age, and it has got the collective consciousness from the millions of years human beings have been living on the planet Earth. So our brain responds in the same way to a threat today as it used to respond to a threat millions of years ago. So today we don't live in jungles. We don't have snakes or lions, or other predators moving around us. But that has been replaced by a boss or a spouse or siblings or client or whatever. So whenever we see them, we sense an imminent threat or a danger. So the body reacts in the same way to the threat, as it used to do millions of years ago. And that is where we need to understand that there is a healthy fear, a healthy response to fear, and an unhealthy response to fear. If I'm standing on my roof and I decide to, I want to fly, and if I fly off, jump off the roof, it is unhealthy. So the fear is healthy; it can keep me safe. But if it is excessive, then it will keep me trapped. So we need to understand what is rational and what is irrational fear. And we also need to understand that it is one of the two basic drivers of human action. There's a very famous, I don't know if you've heard of this movie, Wall Street. Any Michael Douglas fans in the session today? If you're a Michael Douglas fan, please type MD in the chat box. If you are a Michael Douglas fan, please type MD in the chat box. So whether you're a Michael Douglas fan or not, there is this very interesting. Thank you, Zarir. There is this very interesting movie, Wall Street, and you may like to watch it. It's a weekend, and there the Gordon Gekko makes a very famous statement that people are driven by two basic sentiments, which is fear and greed. So anything we fear, we are moving away from, and anything we want, we are rushing towards. So in that, so it could be any fear, and we will discuss more about that as we go along. But basically, all the fears come down to fear of survival. The root, that is the root of all the fears. And we will see all the different kinds of fears that we have, but at the underlying, underlying all those fears is the existential threat that we perceive in the as the underlying cause of the fear. And the fear keeps us trapped, So there's a very interesting book, Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. And in case you've not read it, I would urge you to read it because it helps us understand the human emotions very, very well. And he has done a brilliant job in putting energy to the emotions we experience. And fear is a low energy emotion. So basically, the breakthrough happens courage and upwards. So 200 and up is where you break through. But anything below 200 will keep us trapped where we are. So if we have fear of public speaking, then we won't be out there showcasing our talents. Or if we have fear of cycling or driving, our mobility will get restricted. Or, one of the questions we got is somebody is an entrepreneur, he wants to start a business, there is a fear of failure. So if we don't learn and manage our fear, we can stay in that low energy state and keep achieving suboptimal results. So it's very important for us. Feel free to take a screenshot of this or read more on this, buy this book, whatever you want to do. But this is an extremely important thing for us to understand, that it's a low energy thing. And sometimes there is a lot of fear mongering going on in this society. Fear is actually very profitable. So, people will always try and say that if you don't do this, this will happen. You don't do this, this will happen. You don't buy this dress, you will not look good. Your friends will not like you. If you don't buy this car, your social status will. So there is a lot of fear mongering going on. And so we need to be aware about that. What we also need to realize is that fear is not a fact. Okay. And but the assumption is whenever we think of we are scared of something, we just assume the worst. So assume you are scared of snakes, but 95% of the snakes are non-venomous. And there are very few snake deaths. Actually, there are more deaths which happen due to mosquito bite than due to snake bite. But we are not scared of mosquitoes. We are scared of snakes. So, we need to really understand how do we deal with our fears. I would like to pause here to see if you would like to share any fear that you face, or has this happened to you? Like, there is a fear many people have that investing in stock markets is going to lead to massive losses, or job is safe, business is risky, and things like that. So whatever your fear is, I don't know, maybe we'll pause here to see if you would like to share about any fear you have, or your friends may have, your family members may have, and we can discuss and see whether that is a realistic fear or whether it is. Yes, Hassan Ali.
Hi, sir. So
Hi.
I think, according to me, fear, like when you want to do some activity which you love to do it, but then you will always feel that, oh, log kya bolenge, log dekhenge to kya sochenge, or mera mazak udayenge wo log, so you back out and you don't do
Yeah,
that, so
yeah.
that is a fear that's always happening when you try to do something which you love to do it actually.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, Hassan. That we are going to talk about that. So I'll request you to hold on. And yes, there is a fear of missing out also, and we will cover that. Thank you, Fahad, for sharing that. So let's move on and look at some of the strategies that we can deploy to deal with fear. But before we dive into the strategies, let us understand how the fear today plays out. The fear we have seen, the biological and the historical root of fear lies in our living in jungles where there was an existential threat to ourselves. But today there is not an existential threat. But what does mind interpret as an existential threat is what we will look. Like loss of status. So, Hassan made a very interesting point कि लोग क्या कहेंगे. मैंने कुछ किया, मैंने नया बिजनेस शुरू किया और वो चला नहीं, तो क्या होगा? लोग क्या बोलेंगे कि ये हसन या आशीष या जो जिसने भी बिजनेस शुरू किया ये फेलियर है. तो ये क्या, इसने क्या किया? उसका तो इतना अच्छा नौकरी था, वो नौकरी छोड़ के बिजनेस शुरू किया. तो वो स्टेटस का लॉस हुआ. एंड एवरी टाइम whenever there is a perceived loss of status, our brain interprets it as a existential threat. Because please understand that the status is linked to survival, because status also is linked to the resources you command. So anytime our status goes down, our ability to command resources goes down, and hence it becomes a survival state, which is not true, but we need to look at it and understand. Like fear of failure, log kya kahenge, एग्जाम्स, अभी एग्जाम्स होने वाले हैं, सो बच्चों को बहुत ज्यादा डर लगता है कि मेरे नंबर कम आएंगे। मतलब फेल होना का ये मतलब नहीं कि आप एक्चुअली फेल हो गए, नंबर कम आना भी एक फेलियर मानते हैं, और उनको पढ़ाई करने में इंटरेस्ट से ज्यादा एग्जाम में मार्क्स कितना आएगा या कम आएगा तो क्या होगा उसका डर होता है। सो दैट फियर ऑफ फेलियर, एंड obviously when you are operating from that mindset or studying from that mindset, you are you're worried, and as you have seen in Dr. David Hawkins energy scale, when you're worried, you're fearing, then you are in a low energy state, and whenever you're operating in a low energy state, your output will be suboptimal. This is exactly what Hassan said, log kya kahenge, this is worrying so much about what people think, whereas people are not really thinking about you. People are thinking more about themselves. Who has the time and the energy to think about so many other people? This is what we are thinking, that what others are thinking about me, but others may not be thinking about me. It's an assumption that others are thinking about me. Maybe they are not. Okay. And even if they are, then how does it impact my life? I need to decide what I want to do and go on and live my life as per that, rather than live my life in accordance with the opinions of the other people. If I live my life in accordance to the opinion of other people, कितने लोगों का ओपिनियन मैं सुनूंगा? मेरे चाचा का, चाची का, बुआ का, फूफा का, कजन का, मौसी का, मौसा का, बॉस का, फ्रेंड्स का, गर्लफ्रेंड का, वाइफ का, इन लॉज का, किस किस के ओपिनियन से आप जियोगे? इतने सारे लोग हैं, पॉलिटिशियंस का ओपिनियन से, किस किस का ओपिनियन? सो व्हाट इज optimal is you decide what you want in your life, what is it that you enjoy, and live life according to that. But लोग क्या कहेंगे is a very real fear, because social approval is linked to our survival. See, when we used to live in jungles, if you are boycotted, then you are likely to die, because you will survive only when you are part of a group. So imagine there are 10 people going in the jungle and a lion attacks. Then you'll probably kill the lion. But if you are alone or you are lost, you've got away from your group, and probably the lion will kill you. So the log kya kahenge, iska root cause hai social approval, being in the group, and that is what it is. But today it is not relevant. So we need to understand where is this coming from and how to deal with it. When we live our life with that awareness, then we start moving towards fulfillment of our then the other thing is loss of status. मेरे बच्चे मेरी बात नहीं सुनते, अगर अकेले में नहीं सुनते तो एक अलग बात है, but if the kid, you have guests who have come, you ask your son or daughter to serve the guest, they don't listen to you and they talk back to you in front of other guests, तो आपका status लॉस हो गया। आपका स्टेटस लॉस हो गया तो मतलब एग्जिस्टेंशियल थ्रेट है, देन यू विल शाउट एट योर किड्स एंड थिंग्स विल बिकम इवन वर्स, और दी सबऑर्डिनेट्स डोंट लिसन टू यू, और योर स्पाउस डजंट लिसन टू यू. So, when people don't follow you, you take it as an existential threat. What should you do in that situation? What could be an alternative way to deal with this? If your kids are not listening to you or your spouse is not listening to you, rather than take it as an existential threat, and normally what we will do is we will shout back, or we will use force, or we'll do something else to make them, or we will slap them, or we will do something nasty. What can be the other way of dealing with this situation? Any thoughts? You could also pause and see why, wonder, have some compassion for the people, why they're responding. They're also logical beings. They're also sentient beings. Have some compassion for them.
Um,
Yes. Yes, Pratiksha.
Hi. Okay. See, primarily आप जो बोल रहे हैं बिल्कुल सही है कि compassion होना चाहिए. But at times it happens like, once you start giving in like this, you are very compassionate. You start understanding what is others' perspective and all. Probably it has seen, like out of experience only I'm talking, that people tend to take you for granted sorts, right? And that is again a big fear कि if I don't retaliate at this point of time, probably they would not respect me. Probably they would continue with what they are doing to me. And it's difficult for me to take it at every point of time.
No, I completely agree with you, Pratiksha, and I think that's a very valid thought process. Only thing we are trying to do here is to become aware whether we have an alternative course of action or not. And then choosing that course of action. Should we do it 100% of the times? Or should we do 1 out of 100 times? I don't know. Or maybe we should do 99 out of 100 times. I don't know. Well, all I'm saying is we should act out of choice rather than a compulsive behavior or operating out of a space that I'll get taken for a ride, which is an assumption. It may or may not happen, but I'm assuming we will be taken for a ride. And out of that assumption, then we act nasty. And then, there are consequences to every choice we make. There are consequences to every action we take. So if we are compassionate and I'm taken for a ride, there is a consequence. If I shout back, I am nasty, there is a consequence. There will be tensions. What will happen if you are, trying to have one upmanship? There will be consequences to that also. So all I'm saying is, that arrow I showed is a choice we make. So every time we will have a choice, and I'm not saying one is right or the other. All I'm saying is be aware in that moment and pause for a couple of seconds. It's not even a minute, couple of seconds, and then choose. Uh, does that make sense, Pratiksha?
Absolutely. Impulsive behavior is not recommended. That is what I believe you are trying to communicate, right?
Correct, Pratiksha. And we will do a small mindfulness practice, which will help us get rooted in the present.
Yeah.
And as we practice that, it will open up more options for us as we go along. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that in, Pratiksha. Then the other one is, like kids don't listen to you. You shout them in front of others, they'll become rebel. So then, there is the issue about bigger increment and bigger bonus. So once I got some increment and I was very happy till the time I realized my colleague has got a higher increment. So then, it's a loss of status. It's not what I have got, but what I have got is less than what the other person has got. So then, my loss of status is there. Then, if my bonus is less or if I have not got a promotion, then there is a whole lot of stuff that happens. Then about there is a disease and look, there is so much fear about looks. So if you are an actor and you're growing old, then you will lose power. And if you're growing old otherwise also, you are not as powerful. So there is lot of status, loss of status which happens. There is loss of status which happens when you're alone. So imagine you are a party and you're standing alone versus somebody else who is surrounded by 5-10 people. So there is loss of status. So each of this is being interpreted by our brain. So in this very interesting book, Brain at Work, by Dr. David Rock, he talks about whenever we are in a social gathering, subconsciously brain gives number to everybody in the hierarchy. So this person is number one, this is number two, number three, including our own selves. So whether I am number one in this social setting or I'm number 10 or number 100, whenever we are in a social setting, the brain automatically assigns numbers to everybody about their status, and then basis that is how we respond. So this is some of the things about modern day fears. This is one part of it, social status. And imagine, how, maybe we'll pause here for a couple of seconds for you to think how it is playing out in your life. And are you catching any patterns in your life? So take a couple of seconds and before we move on, for you to reflect. And if there is anything anybody would like to share, we'll be happy to hear from you. How is this loss of status playing out in your life?
Can I?
Yes, Hassan.
So one thing is that I believe more of attachment. See, the more we have attached with the people, with the positions, and and more is chances if we are losing it, then we are having all this fear. So I think here detaching this particular thing will make some relief. Otherwise, you'll always be having fear and you'll have always a tense,
Yeah, very well said, Hassan. There was a client of mine who's very senior position in a multinational bank, very cushy, very cozy job. And he worked at the bank for over 15 years in a very senior position. And suddenly he was let go of, because of some changes in the bank. And he just couldn't deal with that scenario. For 15 years, you have been in a very cushy, cozy job, and suddenly you don't have that job. So can you imagine the loss of status and the attachment that comes along with that? And then he took to heavily drinking to deal with that situation. So it's very important for us to understand that we are somebody beyond this, and we need to step back and look at these things. And today the session is about creating an awareness about this, because once we are aware of how we get triggered, we are able to manage the situation better. This 45 minutes of 1 hour session will not be completely sufficient, but it's a first step. And I'm glad you have taken that time out to invest in building your awareness, so that next time you get triggered with any of these, and this is not the complete list, there could be more things that happen. Uh, like bereavement. Bereavement also can be a loss of status. So, many people lost their near and dear ones. So if a wife has lost a husband, suddenly in the society, there is a loss of status. So things like that, there are many things that can happen. Then the other one, and a very big one, is uncertainty. Our brain just craves for certainty, and it can't deal with uncertainty. It just fuses whenever there is some amount of uncertainty. So we need to understand how this plays out in our lives and how do we deal with this. So there could be uncertainty about income. So if I have a job, if I lose my job, or if I'm fired, whatever, then there is uncertainty. And that uncertainty is worse than knowing that I'm going to lose my job. Or if I have a contract, which ends in 1 year, then I know it's going to, it's not going to be there after 1 year. But if I have a job and I'm going to get fired, and I don't know if that's going to happen, if at all it's going to happen or not, that uncertainty creates havoc in my mind. Then, if I'm in a job and I'm happy, but I'm not really utilizing my new potential, but I don't want to go to a new job because of the risk that is involved. So I don't know what will happen in the new company, new job, or moving to a new city, or going for a new partner. We don't know. So, the uncertainty is like threat to us, and we will stay confined in our comfort zone and not break free. And whenever we get confined in our comfort zone, then we are living a suboptimal life. We are not growing, we are stagnating. And that's the same thing as death. whether we are alive but not living, there's no point. So we need to learn this, become aware of this, or uncertainty about our promotion. If I know I'm not going to get promoted, it's a different thing. Like in public sector undertakings, the promotion scale is time bound, not really linked to performance, but more to time, or maybe a combination of both. But private sector, it is linked to performance, and but you don't know when it's going to happen. So you're working hard and hard and hard, but it's not happening. And then you're worried what's happening. Then so many, or the stock markets. If you look at so if you ask people, let me ask this question and respond: is investing in stock market safe? Please type in the chat. If you think it is safe, type S. If you think it is dangerous, yeah, Fahad says no. Safe. So Hassan says safe. So we have got one yes, one no. Type safe, it is S. Type D if it is dangerous. 2 dangerous. 3 dangerous. More like dangerous, right? So now this is very interesting. If you look at the history of stock market returns in India for last 40 years, it is stock market, the Sensex, which is one of the most popular indexes, has grown by about 15% year on year. So where is the risk of loss? But our mind is hardwired to avoid any loss. Sometimes the loss happens. So if there is a 2001 happens, then there is a there is a loss, or COVID happens, the markets tank and there is a loss. But so there could be a short-term loss, but a long-term profit. But we get very our brain is hardwired to avoid losses. So we don't like the uncertainty. Kab profit hoga, kab loss hoga, pata nahi. To hum usko totally avoid kar dete hain. And a stock market which gives 15% return, we will avoid that. And we will go for FD, which gives me 7% return. So lower but safer is better, but higher but little uncertain is not good. That is how our brain is playing out in our mind. So I'm just giving an example of stock market, but just think in your life, how is this theme playing out? Are you looking at safe but suboptimal options, whereas the growth and risky could be somewhere else? So sometimes the career decisions they get taken because of that. People just choose safe jobs and they stay stagnant, and then they complain later that I'm not happy. So just see how it is playing out in your, where we talked about this. So these are how in the modern day fears play out. Uncertainty is the mind considers uncertainty as an existential threat. So I'll pause here to see if you have any quick questions or comments before we go on and talk about these 7 strategies which I use to deal with the fear. So I don't know if some of you are joining our session for the first time. My name is ASHISH Kumar, and I'm the founder of Mindful Living. I started Mindful Living community in 2020. I've worked in the corporate sector for over 30 years, and I'm a certified mindfulness meditation coach. So during the years of my working in the corporate sector, I saw many people who are highly stressed, and I've seen that stress taking a toll in terms of their health, in terms of their drinking, in terms of divorces, in terms of so many other challenges they faced in their lives. So, for last couple of years, I have been dedicating my time to spread awareness about living consciously, and so that we can live consciously, be healthier, happier, and wealthier. So in case this message resonates with you, you can click on the WhatsApp group that has been shared in the chat and join our community. We don't advertise our work. The work we do is complementary, and there is no religious or political agenda. So you can click and join the community in case you're not already a part of. And in case you have no questions or comments, I'll be happy to move on and talk about the 7 strategies In
I would
case,
like to,
yes,
I
Pratiksha.
would like we are mainly talking about the, the external world, I would say, in terms of, the professional work. But at times, a person hesitates, and because of that particular fear, uh, you know, even in the family life, in the relatives, or in the extended family, some people are not really opening up, and you tend to, at times, fear to actually even acknowledge your presence in a particular set of environment.
Yeah.
So, is there something really that can be worked out there? I've seen people who are absolutely great and extraordinary, extrovert when it comes to their professional life, but when it comes to their personal life, extended family, they just want to keep themselves to themselves because they have this fear that people might not appreciate or accept what they would say.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Pratiksha. That's a very valid concern. And it has its root again in the maybe in the, if I'm reading you right, understanding what you're saying right, could be in the status issue. In my family, if I perceive somebody as more powerful, then I may not open up and speak about it. Or if I'm uncertain, how people will respond to what I am saying, I may keep to myself. It could also be a fear of, that it plays out in different levels. Fear of being authentic, fear of not being accepted as we are. Now, we are constantly judging ourselves and others around us. But big power is there in accepting ourselves and accepting others as they are. So I don't know which person are you referring to, but if this person accepts himself or herself that I am like this here and like that there, and be at peace with that, then over a period of time you will find that others also respond in likewise. Sometimes it could be because you perceive the other person to be insensitive, or you are scared that what if I'll speak, how will he respond, and rather than speak, you just keep quiet and settle for what it is. Rather than speak up, and uh, so it plays out in different levels, Pratiksha. I'll be happy to hear from you if this works for you, or have a follow-up question from you.
Yes, actually, the person who interacted, is in touch with me for a very long time. And probably what you said is absolutely right to some extent, that she does have this kind of thing in her mind about the status, number one. And number two is the image. If she speaks up, if she puts her point of view, or she goes, she interacts, she basically reference herself, even for going for get-togethers at her family, extended family, and all. And after being insistently, trying to push, motivate, still, there is some kind of fear in the mind that, there is no acceptability of what she would probably like it to be there.
Yeah. That's a big one. Accepting ourselves is a big one. And others accepting us is also a function of how much we accept ourselves, Pratiksha. So
Mhm.
maybe your friend has got some challenges there. And, this is not only your friend. Accepting ourselves as we are is a big challenge with many, many people.
Right.
And that has nothing to do with the level of accomplishment we have. Even the very high, what we normally call highly accomplished people would have challenges accepting themselves because of the conditioning they have received in their
Mhm.
childhood.
And at times, it is also the judgments and the interpretation of others about you, which probably lets you down, like that's what you feel. And then, you start restricting yourself to go and, really be a comfortably a part of that particular gathering or something.
Yeah, sorry. So this plays out at many different levels, starting with accepting, and it's also about being authentic, Pratiksha. And as I mentioned earlier, there are consequences to everything. If we are, accepting or not accepting, but we're kind of not opening up, there are consequences to that. And if we open up, there are consequences to that. And sometimes the path to a better life is through the troubled, routes. So we need to take those difficult calls, and then life eventually becomes better. So that is what I would like to say.
Okay. Thank you.
So there was a question, which are the two books I referred to. So the one is Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. You can take a screenshot of this, or you can write this down. And the other one is Your Brain at Work. Sorry. Your Brain at Work by Dr. David Rock. Very, very powerful, very interesting, amazing books. So that is what it is. So we will now, any more questions or comments? Else we will go into the
Yes, yes.
study.
I think this is more of the status issue. Like, for instance, any black sheeps in the society, societal pressure, and fear of missing out, I think. So it's more like the status thing.
Correct, correct. So we have also shared the link to the YouTube channel, Pratiksha. Maybe you could share those links with your friend to check out the mindfulness videos we have on the Mindful Living YouTube channel, or in case it works for her, she could join our community and practice mindfulness.
Definitely.
Maybe that will
Definitely.
help her a bit. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And now moving on. So the first strategy is stay in the present moment, because whatever we are fearing is not in front of us. I'm not talking about being in a jungle, and when a lion is facing you, then you obviously need to run or fight. But we are not living in jungles, and we don't have existential threat like the ones we used to have when we lived in the jungle. So bringing ourselves back. So most of the fears that we have arise out of our imagination, and I'll talk more about imagination later. But the fact is, if we bring ourselves to the present, then there is hardly any, like all of us who are on this call, and those maybe who will be watching this video later, uh, will have a roof over their head, have food on their table, have their family around them safe. So where is the fear coming from? Fear is coming from something I'm imagining in the future. So it is important that every time I am there in the future and imagining something, bring yourself back to the present and see if the fear is there or not. If it's not there in the present, then why worry about it being there in the future? So easier said than done. We will do a quick 5-minute practice, because we are coming to the close of the session. 5-minute practice on rooting ourselves to the present moment. I'll request you once again to keep your cameras on. It helps me guide you through the meditation process. Else, you can just continue sitting where you are. Close your eyes gently. Your back and neck in a straight line. Chin parallel to the ground. Palms in your lap, facing upwards. Sit straight. Don't be stiff. Have a gentle smile on your face. And enjoy bringing your attention to the entrance of your nostrils. And observe every breath that comes in and moves out. Breathe in. Breathe out. We take 20 to 30,000 breaths in a day, hardly ever noticing. This is your time, your me time. Pay attention to every breath that is coming in and every breath that is moving out. Be relaxed. Have a gentle smile and savor every breath that you are taking in. Juicy, delicious breath. We worry about many things in our lives. While taking others for granted. If you don't have money, you could borrow. If one loses a job, there is always a next one. But we worry about those things. However, we never worry about oxygen being there for us. We breathe 20, 30,000 times in a day. And this oxygen is provided to us free of cost. For 7 billion people on our planet Earth, there is abundant oxygen available. Like oxygen, everything else is available in this universe in abundance. It is where we place our attention on, whether on the infinite abundance or on the scarcity. And wherever we place our attention, we get more of that. Continue to breathe. Focusing on breathing is a great way to root your attention in the present. You can't go back to a breath that you've just taken, nor can you take a breath in future. Present is all we have. That is why it is a gift. Continue to breathe. observing every breath coming in and every breath moving out. Wandering of the mind is not a mistake. It is its nature. Every time you find your mind has wandered away, gently, with compassion, bring it back to focus on your breathing. Observe every breath that is coming in, every breath that is moving out. Continue to breathe. Enjoy this process of breathing consciously. In a couple of seconds from now, we will be coming to the end of this practice. Consider setting an intention that this practice of being mindful, of staying rooted in the present, will benefit you and everyone you come in contact with. Thank you for practicing mindfulness with me. You may choose to keep your eyes closed for a couple of seconds more and open them once you are comfortable. I'll be happy to hear your experience, either in the chat or you could unmute yourself and speak. So what we just did was a short practice of mindfulness, which helps us stay rooted in the present. And in the present, there is hardly any danger. So this is a great technique to bring ourselves back to the present and evaluate if there are any challenges or no. The second one is to focus on what we can control. Thank you, Zarir. And this is a very interesting story which I heard from my teacher, Nitya Shanti. In case you've heard this earlier, let this be a reminder of the message and don't spill the beans. So there is this female deer in the jungle who is about to deliver a baby. And there is a fire which breaks out in front of her. And on her right-hand side is a lion, hungry lion, waiting to pounce on her. On her left-hand side is a hunter with a bow and arrow. And at her back is a river which is flooded. So in this situation, what is it that the deer can do? Can you imagine this situation, how frightened the deer might be? She's full term, needs to deliver a baby, but there is fire in front of her, river at the back, lion on the right hand side, and a hunter on the left. What do you think the deer can do? If you're curious to know what can the deer do, please type C in the chat and I'll be happy to share with you. Go through the fire. Thank you. Interesting. Thank you, Zarir. Anybody else curious to know what should the deer do? Thank you, Surya. Anybody else? So, in what the deer does is, there is only one thing which is in control of the deer. What is that? To deliver the baby. And when she decides to deliver the baby, the entire universe moves. There is a loud thunder in the sky. The hunter gets startled and shoots an arrow which kills the lion. And there is rain which follows the thunder, which puts off the fire. So suddenly everything turns out in the favor of the deer. Now take a moment to reflect on this story and see it in your lives. Haven't there been times in our lives when it looks completely hopeless? This was a hopeless situation for the deer. She can't move, she can't run, she has to deliver a baby, and there is fire on one side, hunter on the other, lion on the other, and a flooded river. What does that mean in our life? Angry boss, angry spouse, angry client, children, all things happening together. We feel so overwhelmed, hundreds of emails, so many things happening together. And what is it that we can do in that time? And when this kind of situation happens, we get constricted by the fear and by the overwhelm, and we tend to go in, our BP shoots up, our diabetes happens. But what is required is to stay true to what we can do and just focus on that little bit. And rather than worry about what can go wrong, trust that things will go right as long as we are focused on what we can do. That's a very subtle but a very powerful difference. We are worried all the time about things that can go wrong. Why don't we trust that things will go right? Worrying is not going to change the outcome. So why not trust? That's a much better space to be in. As we saw in Dr. David Hawkins' scale, worry is low level energy, trust is high level energy, acceptance is high level energy. So make that switch and stay the course, face your fear, and stay focused on what is it that we can do in the moment. So I understand that we are kind of little behind time. So I want to understand from you, are you okay to for us to extend this session by another 15-20 minutes, or should we just bring this to a close now? And I'll be happy to take your questions and comments. So Pratiksha says okay to extend. Yes, continue. Okay, Hassan also says yes. Anybody else? Okay, yes, please. Okay, Thank you, Surya. So we'll continue. Now let's look at the third strategy. This is a very powerful one, and I learned this from my cousin, who's a very senior corporate executive and on board of many companies. And he says, we tend to assume our fears. We discussed this earlier also, that fears are not facts, and we assume our thoughts and fears to be true. But he says that you be the devil's advocate and explore if the opposite is also true. So if I were to say stock markets are risky and dangerous, look at the fact whether they are safe or not. So I presented with you fact that if you have been invested for 40 years, then the returns are 15%, and anybody who has stayed invested for more than 10 years has never ever made a loss. So these are the counterfacts. So whenever you are faced with a situation where you're fearing something, so the another situation could be like we are reading that IT companies are not hiring, IT companies are firing. So overall there is a slump in the market, in the job market. So that is at the macro level. But are people getting jobs? Yes, people are getting jobs. और आपको तो एक ही नौकरी चाहिए ना, तो आप अपने एक नौकरी लेने पे फोकस करो, कहाँ मिल सकती है आपको, क्या आपके स्किल सेट्स हैं. So everything, just what happens is the media plays a particular narrative, and we tend to believe that narrative and live our lives according to that narrative. But the truth may actually be different. And there is a very nice book, I haven't read it, but somebody was referring to it, Factfulness. And I would just like to make one point. I'd like to ask you whether our world today is better off than it was earlier or worse off than it was earlier. If you think it is better off than it was earlier, please type B. If you think it is worse off, please type W. And you can think of, the Ukraine war. You can think of Israel-Hamas war. You can think of all the hunger. Better off. Okay, so we are getting to better offs. Okay. And let us see if there are any other responses. So a lot of people believe that, okay, so a lot of people believe better off, but then maybe it is worse off. We don't know. There is so much more that is going wrong today. AI is there and we don't know how it will. So have a balanced view on what is good, what is bad, and then create your narrative according to what you would like to do rather than what is being told to you. As I mentioned earlier, there is profit in fear mongering. So when people, say that this is going to happen, that is like people were saying 2012, the world will end. Is that a fact? We don't. Now we know the world has not ended. We are there another 10, 12 years after that. So people, the Hollywood movies got made, books got sold. So people will do all kind of things to promote their work, promote whatever they want to do. So it is important for us to play a devil's advocate and have a reality check on what is happening. If this makes sense, please type MS in the chat box. If this is making sense to you, please type MS makes sense in the chat box. Thank you, Zarir. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Shivran. Okay, glad. Good. So we'll move on. And the fourth strategy is, what has been talked about. Sabse, this is my teacher, Rajiv Talreja says, Sabse bada rog kya kahenge log. And I went through a training program a couple of years ago. And this was pre-COVID. And one of the things they very specifically taught us in that program was to use these concerns, to use these lines. Thank you for sharing. So if anybody is saying something to you, you say, thank you for sharing whatever you are sharing. I appreciate your concern, or I understand how you feel. You can, and you don't necessarily need to be verbose about it. This could also happen silently. However, I give a dash to whatever you are saying. Okay, so this gives us kind of immunity to what people are doing, and I have been using this very, very effectively in my own life. Just to give you a small example, I don't have a car. I don't even have a two-wheeler. Now imagine in today's world where people have multiple cars, multiple vehicles. I don't have any. And if I were to let other people judge me by the car I drive or the lack of a car, then I would end up spending a couple of lakhs in buying whatever I need to buy, and it will be standing down because I don't need to go anywhere, or if I need to go, I hire a cab. So how is this playing out in your life? So just take a couple of seconds. I'll pause here for you to reflect on this and see what people are saying. This was a realization I had a couple of years ago when I thought to myself, why am I letting people be my mirror? अगर वो बोलते हैं मैं अच्छा हूं तो मैं क्या अच्छा हो जाऊंगा, वो बोलते हैं मैं बुरा हूं तो क्या मैं बुरा हो जाऊंगा? क्या फर्क पड़ता है लोग क्या बोलते हैं? आई नीड टू हैव माई ओन आइडेंटिटी. आई नीड टू decide what I want for myself and then live my life according to that. So this is a process, but a lot of work I do with my coaching clients is to decide what they want and live their life according to that, crystallizing their goals, their vision, their mission, and help them live consciously. So this is the other one. These 3-4 lines are very powerful. I don't encourage you to speak them out, but in your mind, you could share that. Thank you for sharing, or thank you for sharing. You could still say it out. I appreciate your concern. I understand where you're coming from. However, I give a dash, 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 dash. Okay. The next strategy, which is a very, 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 very powerful strategy, is gratitude. And there is a lot of science about it, which I'm not going to get into this now, but we will have another session on gratitude. It is immensely powerful in elevating your quality of life and letting you deal with the fear. So if you are worried about your job loss, if you have a job and worried about job loss, say thank you for at least having a job. Many people don't have a job. So say thank you. So, the gratitude works in 2 ways. One is prepaid and postpaid. So postpaid gratitude is saying thank you for things which you already have, which could be a job, or like I was going on a ride and I was just caught talking to the cabbie, and he said, I asked him, how are you, कैसा चल रहा है तुम्हारी लाइफ में? बोला सब कुछ है मेरी लाइफ में, बहुत है, अच्छा है, but बीवी नहीं है. He doesn't have a wife. So imagine there are so many people I meet who are complaining about their spouses, and this guy, the only thing he's looking for in his life is a. So what I'm trying to say is be grateful for the relationships you have, for the people you have in your life, whether it is parents, siblings, spouses, because some people don't have. I don't have my father. I lost my father many, many years back, and that caused tremendous amount of stress and trauma to me, which I didn't realize then, but I went through my life with that trauma unresolved. And rather than be grateful for having a father for so many years, I had the trauma of losing him because we lost him to a suddenly. So always be grateful for what you have and be grateful for what you want to have in future. So that's what prepaid and postpaid. We'll possibly have the next session, which is on gratitude only, where I'll talk much more in detail about gratitude. But for now, we will pause. This is what I like to share about. Just say thank you. Keep saying thank you. Saying, and many religions have this inbuilt, saying shukrana or thank you is a part inbuilt in many religions as a practice, and social practices also it is there. Then this was a big one for me. I used to be very uncomfortable with unknown, uncertainty. But it is fine, but you just need to trust, like I talked about earlier, make peace with the uncertainty. And it is unlikely that you will go wrong unless you are doing something foolhardy. If you open yourself up, because it's the life is uncertain. There are so many variables. How can you be certain? It's going to be more uncertain. Anything can go wrong, or things can go right. Many things can magically go right, which we don't think about. So make love, embrace uncertainty. Even though I shared earlier that our brain thinks of uncertainty at a risk, It is not. So we just need to recognize that and deal with that. And this is possibly the last one. Imagination is a very powerful faculty that we have. And most of the times we are, and this is coming from Albert Einstein, where he says, imagination is more important than knowledge. Most of the times we are imagining the worst. Why not imagine the best? Okay. So we remember the past, but the last strategy, and this is the one which leads you, and the couple of others that we discussed earlier, completely leads you to your future, where you remember the kind of future you want to make, and we spend very little time. The message that we sent out inviting you for this session was, we drive our cars looking at the windscreen, but we drive our cars looking at the rear view mirror. मेरे को मार्क्स अच्छे नहीं मिले तो मैं लाइफ में फेलियर हो जाऊंगा, ऐसा सोच के हम अपनी जिंदगी, किसी का अगर एनआईटी में हुआ तो उसकी जिंदगी खराब हो गई, आईआईटी में हुआ तो बहुत अच्छी हो गई। तो जिसका एनआईटी में होगा वो पूरी जिंदगी सब ऑप्टिमल लाइफ जीता रहेगा, बोलेगा मैं तो आईआईटी में हुआ नहीं, आई एम ए फेलियर। कहीं ना कहीं सबकॉन्शियसली ये चलता रहता है माइंड में। So we need to create our life remembering our future. क्या आगे है मेरी life में? What is it the kind of life I want? That is what we need to be focused on, and it takes conscious effort. It's easier said than done, but it takes conscious effort in deciding what I want in my life. And my teacher Nitya Shanti says the BPO. We always a lot of business planning, scenario plannings have the worst possible outcome, but we don't talk about the best possible outcome, or we don't think so much about the best possible outcome. So we need to decide for ourselves what is the best possible outcome you want, and maybe after this session, if time permits, you take a couple of minutes and write down what could be the best possible outcome for you in 2024. Or in case you would like to reach out to me, I'll be glad to have a one-to-one session with you, helping you decide the best possible outcome for you, or forecasting 2024 for you. And this is very, very backed by science. Wherever our energy goes is wherever attention goes is where energy flows. And in our Upanishad Purans, it's also said that Yatha Drishti Tatha Srishti, which means what we are thinking about is what we are creating in our lives. How we look at life is how our world is. So take a couple of seconds and think about what is it, one thing that you will do, or two or three things that you will do if you could not fail. So I'll pause here for you to take this couple of seconds and write down or make a note of what is it that you have not been doing but will do if you could not fail. If any insights come to you and you are done, please type D in the chat box. Thank you, Viswan.
I happen to miss the third and the fourth point. My power went off. So can you just
of what we discussed in this?
Yeah.
Third and fourth in the strategy.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll be doing it recap, Pratiksha.
Okay.
We will also be sharing the recording with you.
Okay.
Are you a part of Mindful Living, Pratiksha?
Yes, I'm part of two groups. One I just joined, and one is like the older one.
All right. Sure. So we'll now move on and do a quick recap of what we have discussed so far in this session. if any of this resonates with you, if there is any new insight you got about any point, you can type in the chat or show a thumbs up so that I know this is what you liked about this session. This is what was a learning for you. This is something that you will apply or operate out of this awareness. So we discussed what is fear, that it is our biological, psychological, physiological response to a threat in the environment. And this is one of the two basic motivators of all human behavior, fear and greed. And this has kind of kept us safe, but an obsessive fear can also limit our growth. Then we understood what are modern day fears, loss of status, uncertainty, and there are a couple of others which we didn't go into details of today. But these are two, and they play out in many different ways in our lives. And that's how we react to situations. So I urge you to acknowledge and understand this, how a loss in status is considered as an existential threat. And why do we consider that? We discussed about that. And we talked about strategies to deal with fear. We also discussed that fear is not a fact, which also we discussed later in Devil's Advocate, that every time we think of something that could go wrong, also challenge that assumption and ask for evidence, whether this is going to work for me or not, like whether this is true or not, or what is it that you can do. Focus on what you can control. I think that is very, very, very important when it comes to dealing with fear. So if it comes to, if it's a, say, like a job loss situation, what is it that you can do? Can you perform better? Can you develop new skills? Can you network more? Or if it's a relationship, what is it that you can do? Rather than build the relationships after they have gone sour, can you invest in? One of my friends, Rohan Singhal, says that when things go wrong in a relationship, we kind of lean back. But he says actually you should lean forward, lean in when things are not going right. We talked about staying in the present because there is hardly any danger in the present. Most of the dangers are imagined and in future. Then we talked about sabse bada rog, kya kahenge log, which is also linked to the status and our living life outside in versus inside out. So this is about deciding what we want in our lives and using gratitude for what we have and what we want in future, which is a very powerful exercise. And we will do our next session on gratitude. To talk more about this very wonderful, very powerful practice. And very simple. That's the beauty of this practice. Then we talked about embracing uncertainty. A lot of, particularly I used to shun uncertainty. And like, when I was in a job for 25 years, I used to be worried about my salary, about my job. Last 5 years, I have been on my own, which is when I actually should be more worried about my income because I don't know where my next check is going to come from. But I'm completely relaxed. So I have embraced uncertainty and has worked out much better for me. So that's been my journey. And I would encourage you also to embrace uncertainty and make friends with it and deal with it. And then we talked about remembering your future, which is thinking a lot about how you would like your future to be. There are systematic practices about this, which we have not gone into details of today, but I'll be happy to assist you in case you would like to have a one-to-one coaching. So you can send me a message, and my number is 9899977266, and we can schedule a session where we can I can understand what are the challenges you're facing and help you with that. And if things work out, then we can have a longer term arrangement. So first coaching session is complimentary. After that, it gets paid. So that's in brief about the session and what I do. I'll be happy to have your questions or comments. I'm going to focus on what I can control. Thank you so much, Zari. And in case you're a member of the Mindful Living community, please share your takeaway from the session today in the group. It will help others also, and it will help you by reinforcing that learning. In case you're not a member of Mindful Living community, please click on the link that we have shared and join the community to benefit from the sessions that we do. So that's all from my side. Happy to hear your comments or questions. And then we can bring. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pratiksha. Thank you, Srilata. Thank you, Vikas. Sure, Zari. I'm good. I'm good. Okay, okay. I'm not sure if I understand you, Surya sir. I target on what I can achieve.
Yeah, that's way. I target not only that, not on the point where I can achieve 100%. That is achievable. That's okay. Let us target something bigger than what I can achieve. Then
Oh, very nice, very nice, very nice. Very good.
right.
That's great. Yeah. So you face your fears and go for what is more
Yeah.
than, yeah, rather than stay in your comfort zone. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Right.
Thank you.
Very nice, motivating things every time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I remember our meeting in Bangalore.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's it. And that gave me very good friends. And now Pratibha is doing lot many sessions.
Correct. Yeah.
And she got the Writers Award also.
Yes.
That's a really good thing that this group, the group you generated is really achievers group.
Thank you. Thank you, Surasen. Thank you, Rajiv. We'll, if there are no more questions or comments, we'll bring the session to a close. Thank you, everyone, for attending the session live. Thank you, everybody who are watching the video. Please leave your comments after watching the video. And the next weekend, we will not have a session. It's a long weekend and I'm traveling. So we will connect again in the first week of February. The details will be shared in the Mindful Living group. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you, Zarir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get well soon.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Chal, I'll see you later then.
Sure.
Bye.